I'm back. Let me get this situated a little bit first. I'm trying the horizontal stream again. Looks like I'm locked this way. Never mind. I was going to do it the horizontal stream, but I'm just going to go back to the vertical for today. I'll do vertical next time. This is just slightly more convenient. Uh, I'm wearing a Star Wars T-shirt. It says you probably can't read it. It says Rebel Alliance Fighter. So I'm a rebel, Dottie, a loner. Let me stop. You would probably, if you aren't a Gen X, you wouldn't even got that quote unless you were a serious fan of Pee Wee Herman. But yeah, I'm wearing a Star Wars T-shirt. I actually wore this to work today. My boss's boss is a huge Star Wars fan, so I definitely earned some points today. Not for that, but because he claimed, like, my boss told his boss that, hey, I'm a bigger Star Wars fan than he is, and he's like, oh, he's like, nah. And I pulled out a Luke Skywalker action figure from my pocket because I actually keep a Luke a Luke Skywalker action figure in my pocket that I take with me to places. Well, other than the gym. And he was like, "Oh yeah." So he actually went to go. This this became a cock measuring contest because it wasn't fair. He won because he was in his house. I'm not in my house. I'm at the office. He went back and brought back power a Boba Fett action figure from Powers of the Force toy line, which came out in the 90s, signed by the actor who played Boba Fett back then. Then he also pulled out a Darth. I think it was a Darth Vader. Yeah, Darth Vader, signed by David Prowse, the original body actor of Darth Vader back in the 80s. So I was like, nah, he won. He won. But everyone else in my office was saying, nah, bro. They was like, actually, you won. They was like, he's at home, so he has access to all his stuff. You actually bring your action figure with you to work. He's like, so you actually won because they was like, to me, that's more that's more fanboyish, bringing your action figure to work than to just be in your house and have your stuff around. I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. I said because I have a bunch of Star Wars stuff at home. Like I have my X-wing, um, my X-wing Starfighter. I have a bunch of my action figures. I have a bunch of books and comics and stuff like that. I have some lightsabers, toys, of course. I wish I had a real one. And so he was just like, you know, but he appreciated it because we even got into a debate. Well, not he and I, but my boss's boss, and my boss got into a debate with my immediate boss because he said he liked the Acolyte, and both his boss and myself was like, no, the Acolyte is trash. And this is what this topic is about today. Why the Acolyte is trash. It has recently ended, so now I can talk about it in total because some people might have said, well, a few weeks ago when I talked about it, oh, well, you got to, let it play out and see how good it is. Well, we've let it play out. It didn't get better. It got worse. The the season finale, and let's be honest, they have not planned a season 2 yet. Leslie Hetland, the showrunner and former assistant to Harvey Weinstein, she wants a season 2, but they have not. Lucasfilm and Disney have not planned a season 2 yet. And what's up, Nasruddin? What's going on? So let's get into it. Why does that like suck? Why did I say in the headline for today's topic, the Acolyte has ended and so has Star Wars? that series was trash. And I get it if you came into it the first episode, you'd have been like, well, let's give it a go. Even by the second episode, you might be like, all right, well, we'll see. By the third episode, no, by the third episode, you're getting what you're getting, right? Uh, it's just hard to it's just hard to square that circle. And I was trying to explain, both my boss's boss and myself were trying to explain to my immediate boss why the Acolyte was bad. We tried to explain to him how it changed the canon. He couldn't understand. I was like, dude, he brought up the lesbian force witches, and his boss was like, I wasn't even going to go there with that. He said, but the fact that you keep mentioning it is a problem for the fact that there wasn't, in Star Wars never talked about sexuality. Like, that wasn't a thing. And the whole reason George Lucas said that he created Star Wars back in 1977 was that he made it for he made it for young boys. He was teaching them, he wanted to instill a sense of spirituality into young boys. That was the whole thing with the Jedi and all that sort of stuff. It was teaching spiritual values. What's up, Mooney? Um, that's cool. Yeah, you're Russian. So yeah, so it's like George Lucas himself was inspired by a bunch of stuff. Like, he was inspired by the stuff he watched when he was a kid, like the sci-fi serials of like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, which ironically they made a Flash Gordon movie in like 1980, 1981, which was one of my favorite movies as a little kid. And Buck Rogers, which was a TV show in the late 70s, which I also like. Um, so he was inspired by those sorts of things, like not the stuff that came out in the 70s and 80s, the stuff that came out when he was a kid. Like, these were um, like little black and white serials that came out the 30s and the 40s, and then the comic, and then like the comic strips of the times. Acolyte was not good, Anna Clara. That shit was trash. And I'm going to spell out why. So, and again, we can have different opinions on this, but if you weren't born in the time that you actually saw the original trilogy, just know that your opinion means absolute nothing to me. I was born in 1977, the literal year that Star Wars came out. So unless you can go back and say that you watched the original trilogy before they were edited, saw one of at least one of them in the theaters like I did, I don't care about your opinion. So, and matter of fact, I'll just ignore your opinion unless you drop in a super chat. Unless you drop in a super chat, I really don't care what you think. So, in any case, um, here's how Acolyte destroyed the canon. So, first of all, it just gave a horrible look to the Jedi. And this is in the High Republic era. This was like 200 years from the time of the Clone Wars in the Star Wars timeline, right? This was an era of the Galactic Republic where things were kind of going pretty well for the Republic. There was no there was no tension driving it apart, and at the time there were no known Sith. But they changed all that, and they tried to get away with that in the show by basically having everyone die. I'm not misogynist, Anna Clara. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're not going to get away with having a different opinion by just throwing terms, by calling people isms. That's not how reason works. Sorry to tell you this. Maybe you should have taken a logic class or a philosophy class. But when you disagree with people, you have to actually show reasons why. You can't just disagree and say, well, you're a bad word. I never said Jedi women were bad. Maybe you should shut up, let me make my case, and then if you still disagree, fine. I've never even said anything about Jedi women being bad. I've not even remotely said that. Maybe you should listen first. Then you can decide whether you disagree with me or not. Ravindra says, "Hi, bro. How are you? And which country?" I'm not gonna keep answering that. Like, if you can't understand from the context of the English that I am speaking, American English, I'm not gonna keep answering where I am. It's obvious. You can look. Why even jump into a live stream if you know nothing about the person or what they're talking about? That's kind of fucking stupid. Yeah, and I'm gonna roast people. Just know that in my live streams I roast people. I'm not trying to roast you, Anna. I'm telling you, let me make my case. If you still disagree, that's cool. I don't have anything against Jedi women. So pause it for a second. Django, I'll answer that later. I'm getting through my spiel here. And I'll answer it immediately if you drop a super chat. Any case, um, so when we go to the prequel trilogy, right, showing the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker, who becomes Darth Vader, it's firmly established that one, when they first encountered Darth Maul, there has been no occurrence of seeing Sith for 1,000 years. The Jedi Master on the High Council literally says this, Kiedi Mundi, that we have not seen Sith in 1,000 years. So they disbelieve Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan when they were saying we spotted a Sith. By the way, Candy Bundy was 70 years old. He was of an alien species that doesn't live as long as humans do in their lifespan. And because of that, it didn't make sense to have him in the Acolyte because he wouldn't have lived that long. If he had been living since the High Republic, from the era of the High Republic until the time of the attack of the clones, he would have been over 200 years old, and his species again has a shorter lifespan than humans. So they retconned his whole alien species, and they retconned the whole fact that they said they never saw any Sith. So basically, it turns into a cover up. So now you're making Jedi into liars and people who are just in it for their own self interest. That's not what Jedi do. Jedi don't do selfish things. Selfishness is literally a part of embracing the dark side. The dark side is about being selfish. So just off the bat, they don't understand the Force and the difference between Jedi and Sith, the Jedi path and the Sith code. Um, but like I said, Key Andy Mundy shouldn't even existed back then because he was 70 years old by the attack of the clones. And again, their species don't live as long as humans, which meant that he shouldn't existed back then. His species doesn't live that long. And on top of that, he, as a Jedi Master sitting on the High Council, it would be it, it, it wouldn't make sense for him to lie about that they covered that up. On top of that, let's get into the lesbian force, which is again, Star Wars has never been about sexuality. I don't care if there's lesbians in Star Wars. That's not the issue. The issue is they made up a whole different brand of witches on Darthmere. So we know that there are force witches on Darthmere, right? They've been in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. They've been in Star Wars Clone Wars TV series. They've been in the Star Wars Rebels series, and then recently they've been on Star Wars Ahsoka in their first live action appearance. So then they just decided to make a whole different breed of Force witches, and now they're all lesbians in a coven, and the the couple bring about a girl into the world who is then cloned through the Force. First of all, how did they even come about having a child on their own in the first place? And two, how were they able to clone her through the Force. That rewrites everything that was particularly special about Anakin Skywalker. He was born of the Force itself. He was born of the Force itself because of Darth Plagueis attempting to create life by manipulating the Force through the dark side. Be- when, because of that, the Force counterbalanced his his attempt to do so by creating Anakin Skywalker, who is the chosen one. But now, just having these little random lesbian Force witches create life out of the Force through manipulating the dark side, which they call the thread in that TV show, it just erases all the significance of Anakin. Then they make the Jedi assholes because now they're just going out to people and taking people's children who are Force sensitive. That's literally not what they did. First of all, George Lucas specified that in Star Wars, and again, I'm gonna refer to George Lucas because all the ideas of Star Wars come from George Lucas. If it is not emanating from George Lucas, it is not canon, and I'm going to repeat that. If if the Star Wars ideas aren't coming from George Lucas, they are not canon. If the Star Wars ideas don't emanate from George Lucas, they are not canon. Fuck Kathleen Kennedy. Uh, Fuck that little cowboy hat wearing whatever. I'm not gonna go there, but yeah. And Leslie Headland, she knows nothing about Star Wars. She literally knew nothing about it, nothing. She was too busy covering up for Harvey Weinstein as his assistant. And she literally said, like, when she started producing movies and stuff, that she didn't know most of these movies. She just kind of winged it. That's what she did with Star Wars. She winged it. So, and that's what you get. You get a shitty product. You can't just you can't just make something and throw the label Star Wars on it and think that Star Wars fans are going to like it. Star Wars fans expect quality out of their products. Okay? And again, I have nothing against female Jedi. Leia becomes a female Jedi in the Star Wars expanded universe. There were female Jedi that sat on the High Council in the prequel movies. If people like you and actually watched the prequels, you would have known that there was actually a female Yoda who sat on the High Council. Yaddle. There was several others who sat on the female Jedi masters. One of them ended up saving Kanan, who ended up being the leader of the team that was on Star Wars Rebels. And there were other Jedi masters who were females, and Jedi Knights that were masters. I don't have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is someone pushing their identity politics through Star Wars instead of just making a good Star Wars show or a good Star Wars movie. Like, if you are going to push certain identity politics in a Star Wars show or Star Wars movie, you should make sure that the show and the movies are actually well written. Then it wouldn't matter. But the shows weren't well written. Like, it was apparent that these things were written horribly, or they wouldn't have contradicted the canon so much so. And now they're running around trying to do damage controls, trying to prove that they didn't really just destroy the canon, which they did. Um, then they have this guy who just is sort of a Sith Lord, not Sith Lord. He says he is a Sith. And he goes around just killing these Jedi who for some reason, don't know how to fight. I get it. They never faced a dark side user because in the High Republic, they wouldn't have encountered a Sith Lord. However, they should have still had their basic lightsaber duel skills, training one of the many Jedi lightsaber forms. There's about 9 of them, although not all 9 of them are allowed to be practiced by Jedi. the form that Samuel Jackson's character used was not allowed to be taught to other Jedi. He used it because he could tap that dark side without actually going to the dark side. So he was allowed to do it, but others can't, which is why his lightsaber was purple. um, and then there was like this form that both Anakin and Luke mastered, Gem So. Not everyone could do that. And there was two sub forms of Gem So. And that was Ataru, which was the acrobatic style that Yoda mastered. Anyway, I'm not gonna get to all the lightsaber forms, but in any case, there was plenty of great female Jedi Knights and Jedi Masters. So there's nothing about there being female Jedi's. Um, JG says the wood pally behind you is from the 70s. You have my attention. Not the 70s, the night. I'll give it at best the 80s when my grandmother put these up. But I think these aren't the original paneling. I think she actually put this up. Uh, I'm gonna say she put this up in the 90s because you can sometimes older people will put up older aesthetic styles even though they have gone they're not as what a kind of declasse now, right? But she didn't put this up in the 70s, that's for sure, because we weren't living here in the 70s. We used to live in Baltimore City. Well, I was an infant in like 77, so not me, but in the 80s we lived in the city, not here. So she moved here in the mid 80s, and I can't remember if this was the original paneling or she got this done like in the early 90s. So Liam Jones is back. He said it seems absurd to me to take a story wholesale ripped of Akira Kurosawa's films. Is a bit silly, if not redundant. Just my opinion, though. I'm guessing you're talking about the original 1977 Star Wars. It wasn't a direct ripoff of Akira Kurosawa. If anything, it ripped off a lot from Dune, like so much so that the writer of Dune, Frank Herbert, almost sued George Lucas for plagiarism. Like Tatooine, um, what does Tatooine remind you of? The spice the spice smuggling. What does that remind you of? So yeah, but no, George Lucas was inspired by. I want to get back to my point, but just on the tangent, George Lucas was inspired by a lot of stuff. Like I said, he was inspired by the sci-fi um, space operas of the 30s and 40s, like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. He was also influenced by the Akira Kurosawa samurai revenge films, particularly that one that influenced the first Star Wars movie, right? The New Hope, Episode 4. Uh, but he was also influenced by the spaghetti westerns. The funny thing is, so the the westerns influenced the samurai revenge films, which then influenced the westerns to make the spaghetti westerns, like the Clint Eastwood movies and stuff like that, which then also influenced Star Wars. So so George Lucas was influenced by the Akira Kurosawa films and the spaghetti westerns, and from a French graphic novel, which they made a movie to like 6 years ago, and it was really bad. Seven years ago. The what was it called? The City of a Million Planets or something like that, or whatever it's called. That that had a heavy influence in Star Wars as well. A lot of influences, but I can't say he wholesale ripped off one particular thing other than Dune. Dune was like one of the biggest rips. And yes, there's a lot of Akira Kurosawa in Star Wars, and we actually kind of appreciate that. Actually, Akira Kurosawa was flattered at it about it as well. Um, oh, so you just liking people because they hot, Anna? What about me? I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. But no. So yeah. So George Lucas even defended his legacy at the Cannes Film Festival 2 3 months ago when he received the Palme d'Or award, which is like I think the highest award they award to the Cannes Film Festival, and he defended his legacy. He's look, he was like Star Wars was diverse. He said people keep saying, oh, it was just nothing but a bunch of white male actors. He said most of the actors on the show were Tunisian. Like when you watch the original 1977 movie, most of those actors in the background and playing all the minor parts, these were Tunisian people. And he said some of them were dark skinned. Also, I mean, you had, excuse me, you had Landau Calrissian, who was black. You had Princess Leia, who was the leader of the rebellion. She was the leader of the rebellion, and she was a strong woman. But she wasn't a strong woman in the corny sense that they do now, where a corny woman, like where a strong woman has to basically pretend to be a man. That's pandering, and it's not, and it's disingenuous. She To George Lucas, he said a strong woman can be can present herself however she wants, whether she's in jeans or whether she's in a dress. What matters is not that she acts like a man, it's that she's brave, she's courageous, she's smart. She, you know, these sorts of things, the things that actually matter, not superficial things like, oh, let me make her act like a man. Then he said, and you go into the rest of the trilogy. Um, I mean, sorry, when you go to the prequel trilogy, it gets even more diverse. He said, first of all, he was like, people keep saying it's just a bunch of white male actors. He said, no, most most of the characters are aliens in the movie. Actually, it's not a bunch of white male actors. Most of the most of the characters in the movies are alien species, not humans. The people who were just the white male blah blah bland people were the was the was the imperial fort, like the bad people. They were fascists, and they it was made pretty clear that they held fascist ideas. Like they did not like alien species, they only liked humans. This is why you saw so many aliens on the rebellion side, if people paid attention. And again, we had strong female leaders in the prequels. Queen Amidala was one of the first people to start the rebellion, the mother of Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker. And she also fight. um, we had a black guy who was the second highest person in the council, in the Jedi High Council. The only person higher than him was Yoda, who again was an alien, not a white person, an alien. So it's absurd. And on top of that, like they just don't understand the force. So I'm gonna get back to my rant against the Acolyte. They don't understand the force. People kept saying, well, they're trying to show a balance of the people on the light side of the Force, the Jedi, and people who are dark side users with the Sith. I was like, that's not how balance in the Force works. George Lucas described a long time ago what he meant by balance in the Force. It comes from ideas from Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism. Most people who know Jedi Realism, which is an actual religion, or know the story of the Jedi path from the Star Wars movies and the expanded universe novels and comic books, know that how the Force works is an Eastern idea, which is not a balance of the good and the bad. That's not how it works. That's never how it worked. A balance in the Force was the removal. of the dark side of the Force. The dark side of the Force corrupts. When it was prophesied that Anakin would bring balance to the Force, that meant re- that meant reducing, getting, eliminating the dark side. The dark side corrupts the Force. And it's not some simple half good, half bad sort of thing that people think. That's not how it works. It never worked that way. To bring balance to the forces, to remove the dark side. That's what they meant by balance the force. And of course, Anakin didn't do it by himself. He fell to the dark side of the force. It took Luke Skywalker to redeem his father, to bring balance to the force. And the Acolyte doesn't understand that. The showrunner for the Acolyte, Leslie Headland, the actors obviously didn't, because when they gave interviews, they were talking all sorts of dumb shit. Like one of the actors said that said that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star. He said it twice. Um, so yeah, let me answer some of these comments though. Liam Jones says fair play, but you cannot tell me Jar Jar Binks wasn't a ham-fisted attempt to allay that criticism. No, so Jar Jar Binks was an attempt to appeal to kids, and it failed miserably because people thought that he was like a. They thought that he was given a comical. Um, they thought that he was kind of making fun of Caribbean language, like Caribbean culture, and like a Korean, excuse me, like a Caribbean like patois or Creole or something like that. That's why he was so disliked. One, like I said, people watching it as adults just hated Jar Jar Binks, but he was kind of made just for children. The same way the Ewoks were made for children, and people hated the Ewoks when when Return of the Jedi came out. He was made for the children, but he wasn't well received. And also, I want to make this clear because people always make it like it was the fans that heavily criticized Jar Jar Binks. Yes, fans did criticize Jar Jar Binks, but the criticism that made that actor almost take his own life came from came from the media. He said that himself in interviews that the criticism he received from the media for his portrayal of Jar Jar Binks was what led to him almost taking his own life. Ahmad Best, that's his real name, a black guy. He was redeemed later by Lucasfilm by first giving him a part as a Jedi Master in I think one of the Disney Disney World or Disneyland shows, but then they actually put him in the Mandalorian in season 3 to play a live action version of the Jedi Master he played at the Disney resort. And it was an awesome thing because his character, the Jedi Master, we found out that he's the one who actually rescued Grogu during the Order 66 attack on the Jedi Temple. So, yeah. Liam Jones says Jedi religion being a religion is a joke concept in the late 90s. 1,000 people had to sign a petition to qualify it as a religion was a joke. Actually, you're wrong. It started, as far as I know, in New Zealand or Australia as an as an actual religion. It is. I don't know how many numbers they are in Jedi Realism today, but there are a significant amount of people, and you calling it a joke, you're the joke because, haha, most religions started off as bullshit myths. All of them did. All of them started off as started off by a bunch of people who are in the sun fucking sheep too long in the Middle East. Those are your three big religions. At least at least Jedi realism comes from from science fiction is well written. Let me put these on so I can read these comments without squinting. That's better. So, in any case, guys, I like this format. I can see my comments without them disappearing like I do on the horizontal chat. But yeah, the Acolyte destroyed the canon. It put identity politics over writing a good story. Like at the end of the day, no matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about Star Wars, Star Trek, anything, it has to be well written. If we're not talking about a well written story, then is then we're not people aren't gonna like it. Liam Jones says you keep saying Jedi realism as if that makes sense because that's what it's called. They refer to their religion as Jedi realism. Is if you don't understand something, that's your fault. You literally have Google at your fingertips. So if you were genuinely interested in knowing what they think, what Jedi realism is goes beyond just the Star Wars. It's not a religion based merely on watching Star Wars films. So yes, it does make sense because they actually take inspiration for their religion from Star Wars, but it has more parameters than that. And they discuss these sorts of things all the time. You can easily reach out to one of these people on Facebook, or I'm pretty sure there's a local branch somewhere near where you live because there's like Jedi churches everywhere now. Many of them are informal. Most of them don't have like their own like uh, temple or sanctuary, but they might have get-togethers at certain places, and they do have certain practices. They talk about stuff. Most of these people are pretty chill people. I mean, just because you don't like it, so what? I mean, there's a bunch of religions out there that other people don't like. What you don't like, so what? I mean, okay. I mean, I appreciate Aztec religion. Like, I don't think sacrificing people is too cool. But hey, some people like it. It's not a nebulous term as a religion. Is They have literally organized as a religion, literally. Yeah, it's save that. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't love any men. You will never see me as, like some of these YouTubers saying I love you guys and all that sort of stuff. That shit is weird to me. But yeah, it is like I said, it is an organized religion. You can look it up. They actually have filed to be religions. Like, how's any more ridiculous than other religions out there? I mean, Dianetics from L. Ron Hubbard became a religion, which became Scientology. At least Star Wars is a well-written sci-fi, unlike L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology, based on his book Dianetics. So, anywho, guys, I'm not gonna let him manipulate the whole conversation. So, the Acolyte was trash. Like I said, I'm always gonna be pretty blunt about it. It destroyed the canon. It put identity politics over good writing. It looked cheap. Like the show looked cheap. What's up, Zed? How you doing, man? Um, and like I said, I didn't watch it. What I did every episode, I just looked at the breakdown from several critics. I got one from a critic who was like neutral, one who clearly disliked it. But it was hard to find critics who actually did like it. Like the ones who claimed to like it, they were clearly shills. Like I I could the people who were trying to praise it or trying to, a lot of them, and the ones who were praising it, it looked like they were just trying to do a lot of damage control after each episode that came out. That kind of just took people back a bit. Like, what the hell just happened? Like I said, you would think the season finale would have gave its strongest oomph for the show, but the season finale kind of destroyed it for most people. And then it didn't make sense. Like, so the bad girl, the acolyte, because they were twins, and they didn't know that one was a former Jedi Padawan and the other one was now a Sith acolyte or whatever she was. If you don't want to say Sith, the apparently the Sith acolyte could no longer be trusted by her Sith Lord guy. He wasn't really a Sith Lord himself because they showed Darth Plagueis at the very end, and you know there can only be two when it comes to the Sith, a master and an apprentice. So I'm guessing he was an apprentice himself who was trying to find another Sith acolyte so that they could be they could do their own rule of two. But they never said that he was going to try to take down Darth Plagueis or whatever. Um, but in any case, apparently he couldn't trust her anymore, so he actually ended up taking the former Jedi Padawan under his tutelage and mind erasing his Sith acolyte, the other twin. It made no sense. It was stupid. You said, how would I have written it? I, well, first of all, I would have gave. So this is the High Republic era, and like so they've already discussed like the High Republic era in the comics like 5 6 years ago when they first introduced a whole new storyline, and most people were excited. Fans of all colors were pretty much excited for the this new era of Star Wars, the High Republic, because it was all new territory. The only thing that we knew is that Yoda was still have been living at that time, since he's 900 years old by the end of the last end of the original trilogy. So the High Republic was known for being the golden age of the Jedi and of the Galactic Republic in general. And you can kind of like distinguish it from like the Middle Ages. Like you have the Old Republic, the High Republic, and then the fall of the Republic, which corresponds to the Middle Ages, like the early Middle Ages, the High Middle Ages, and the Late Middle Ages. Because the Jedi were both sort of like samurai and medieval knights. Um, the way I would have written it was one, to make sure that the Jedi are shown as George Lucas envisioned them. They were they were known to be actually well liked amongst citizens of the Galactic Republic, and as such, it would have been an honor for someone's child to be asked to join the Jedi Academy, the Jedi Temple. They wouldn't have come to people's houses and just snatched their children or just told them, this person, well, you can keep one, but the other one has to come with us. That's not how they did things. They asked. So them just taking someone's child, like that was just they just made the Jedi look bad. So that would have been one thing I corrected. Two, I would have made it that this person that they encountered was not a Sith at all. This could have been a dark force, a different sort of dark force user entirely. Or it didn't even have to be a dark force user. It could have been many of the other species out there that they've encountered in the expanded universe, since they always like to pick, even though they said the expanded universe is no longer canon, they like to pick and choose stuff from the expanded universe when they want. So they could have taken another threat known to them at the time, or just created a new threat, since it's a whole different era, the High Republic. They could have chosen a whole different threat to the Galactic Republic and to the Jedi at the time, which wasn't a threat anymore by the fall of the Republic. That could have been something they could have written into it. Also, they shouldn't have made it all about identity politics. Like every male was either inept or a bad guy. That's it. Like they were either inept or a bad guy. We need to get past that. Like they did that in Ahsoka too, which is kind of lame. Ahsoka was what made me quit Star Wars, like Disney Star Wars, not George Lucas Star Wars, but made me quit Disney Star Wars. So those are some of the things I would have changed in how it was written. Then also at the end, oh, and also I wouldn't have allowed them to have Force witches create some children out of the Force, since that was literally only the thing that happened with Anakin, which was considered a unique thing for someone to be born purely of the Force. This is why he had the highest midichlorian count of any person they've ever encountered. The midichlorians are basically um, how humans can um, access the living Force, and he had the highest known midichlorian count ever because he was a product born of the Force itself. So I would have changed that as well. That you wouldn't have any Force witches creating twin sisters out of the Force. One of them actually being basically like a clone of the other. That was stupid. And at the very end, it wouldn't have had the Sith or Dark Force user or whomever they decided to use as the bad guys. Wouldn't have had them just give up their apprentice and mind erase her and say you can go off on your own and do your own thing, and I'm gonna take your sister and train her instead. That didn't make any sense. Like she had been loyal to him for most of that time, so why not just take her with them and then they can go off and do whatever? It was just bad. It was just bad. It was just poorly written. Like you don't have to go to film school to realize how poorly written that was. Liam says, okay, I'm ignorant to any of this. I've seen the first two films as a kid, and I got hyped for the one released in 2016, just a group think. Me and my partner watched it at the cinema, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, you don't know the original trilogy. So, like I said, you're not really in a position to see why it's so bad because you don't have the insight of seeing the original movies. You gotta go through like you got the first three movies, which was episodes 4, 5, and 6, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Then you have the prequel trilogy that came out in the 90s and early 2000s, which is The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Then that's followed by the Clone Wars TV series, uh, and then Star Wars Rebels. Then you go into the sequel trilogy, which is The Force Awakens, which was not that bad. The Last Jedi, and honestly, I dump a lot on Last Jedi because it was a bit bad, but it wasn't too. The worst part is their treatment of Luke Skywalker in that movie. That was the worst part. And then Rise of the Skywalker, where they tried to fix all the broken parts of the of the sequel trilogy, and it just made it worse. So then after that, then you also have like Rogue One and Solo, and then you have this TV series like Mandalorian, Boba Fett, um, Kenobi, and Ahsoka. So there's a lot of stuff to get through, and then there's other stuff too. I'm just not including them. So, bro, this is where we differ. I agree. Identity politics is a thing, but does it really matter if men are inept? Yes, it's a bit on the nose for the cultural climate, but surely you should be more what? No, you, if you, if you start off with the very intention of making men look look stupid or evil, just for your little Kathleen Kennedy feminist agenda, put a chicken in to make her lame and gay. I mean, Cartman said it just right. Put a chicken in to make her lame and gay. That's all they do for every Lucasfilm project now. They did it to Willow, they did it to Indiana Jones, and they did it to Star Wars. Um, Please, no one tell them that they own the rights to Howard the Duck. They might fuck that up too. But yeah, it's trash. And no, it does matter because you don't put politics or anything else above good story writing. At the end of the day, people are fans are coming to see a good story. If you can't write a good story, everything else falls apart. It doesn't matter how much you thump your chest about how diverse we are. No one wants to see diversity in place of a good story. You can have diversity and a good story, but you don't replace a good story with diversity, cultural diversity, whatever. It's lame. It's it's very gimmicky and it doesn't work. This is why The Acolyte now is the lowest rated Star Wars project ever made. Previously, the lowest scored Star Wars project that was ever made was the Star Wars holiday special that came out in 1978. It was so bad that even George Lucas disavowed it himself. He was like, "Yeah, I kind of regret making this because it was so bad." But now we look at like the Rotten Tomatoes scores and other critic scores of the Acolyte versus the Star Wars Holiday Special. It is the lowest ranked Star Wars project ever made. The lowest ranked. It even fell out of the top 10 with the Nielsen ratings. Miss Nita says, I see the glasses are on. It's getting serious now. Yeah. You say I'm not concerned with a good story. Then you have no argument. You literally have no argument on this. If you don't agree that there should be a good story behind watching something, then you don't have a strong opinion on this matter. I'm sorry. Like that doesn't make sense. Like how can you why would someone come to watch something that is just pure fluff? I'm not. Especially you're talking about something that has 46 years of history behind it. Like you can't just throw Star Wars on a piece of shit and say yeah, check this out because it's Star Wars. No, people demand quality. And at this time, we're used to lightsaber battles, so lightsaber duels. So that's not going to carry the day. Just sit there having two people fight it out with lightsabers is not going to impress people who have two brain cells. Oh, I got you. You said a good story is paramount. Got you. I'm sorry. Yeah. At the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't matter how diverse something is. You know that it has a diverse cast of actors and stuff like that. Is it something worth watching? And if it's not worth watching, it doesn't matter how diverse it is or how undiverse it is. And like I said, people don't give credit to George Lucas for the amount of diversity he did actually have in his original movie. In his original 1977 movie, like he said, most of the actors on set were actually of Tunisian descent, since they filmed a lot of it in the desert for when they were on Tatooine, which is basically the Star Wars version of Arrakis from Dune, but whatever. But in any case, yeah. On top of that, most of the characters in the films were aliens, so it was unfair to say that all his original actors were basically just white people and white males. Like even on his movies, a lot of the white males were the bad guys. They were the two like there was like a few white people on the good side of rebellion, like Luke and Han and his best friend who died, Biggs. What was his name? Biggs Darklighter or something, and the guy, some of the other people who were like just um, supplemental characters. So, like I said, now that we got through all uh, 8 episodes, it was trash, and I don't expect much of Star Wars going forward. Like they keep, for for one, they keep canceling movies. Like they've canceled like almost 10 movies since within the last 8 years. But apparently they're still gonna make a movie on Rey, a character that no one likes. Now, let's get this clear. Just because I don't like the character Rey does not mean I do not like that I dislike the actress. The actress who plays Rey Palpatine, because I'm not calling her Rey Skywalker. The actress who plays Rey Palpatine is a delightful person. She seems genuinely cool and is a good actress, despite some of the content she has, the limit of the content she has to work with for her character. She is a delight. I can't remember um, her real name, sorry, but she's a delight. And when The Force Awakens first came out, she actually seemed like a cool character, but they turned her into a Mary Sue, like, and they just messed it up. There could have been a lot more intrigue behind her character, especially if they decided to make her part of one of the lineages coming from the original movies, like if not Skywalker, maybe Kenobi. But instead, they decided to make her the granddaughter of a clone of Darth Sidious. Daisy, that's her name. The characters were a proxy for real life caricatures, through though surely you accept that notion. I don't get that. And yeah, Daisy Ridley. I am going to criticize Ray Palpatine because she was a shit character. She, she. There was no dimension to her. The only thing that we got from her was that she longed to know whom her parents were. That was it. There was no depth to her. The fact that she could automatically do stuff that some Jedi Knights or Sith couldn't do without any training was absurd. And I don't take you serious. And besides that, I don't even think you're over 18. I think you're a child, so I'm not going to even respond to you anymore. I think you're a child. I really don't care about your opinion. You've probably never seen the original movies, so I don't really care about your opinion. You're a child. I can tell by the way you're responding. And anyway, they decided to go against what we knew from the Star Wars Expanded Universe. And the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Luke ended up becoming the most powerful Jedi to ever live. The dude could manipulate black holes through the Force. I don't believe you're 50 years old. I really don't. Either that, or you just don't know Star, or you may be, or you know what, you may be 50, but you clearly don't understand Star Wars. People who read the expanded universe novels know that Luke became the most powerful Jedi that ever lived. He can manipulate black holes. He mastered a force ability called Shatter Point, like where he could like use the force to find the weakness in you. EU is in canon only because Disney says so. No one cares what Disney thinks because Disney just didn't want all that backlog of literature going into the new sequel trilogy that they were making. I don't care what Disney thinks because they betrayed George Lucas. He literally went on TV and called Disney white slavers. So I don't really care what Disney thinks when it comes to Star Wars. They did that man dirty. Like, yes, he made a huge profit from selling Star Wars to Disney, but he cared about his his property. He literally said he considered Star Wars his child. and he didn't like some of the things they were doing. So when they decided not to go with his ideas for the sequel trilogy, he left them alone. You didn't, yeah, you need to go check out what he said at the Cannes Film Festival. And yes, and no, just because he supported Bob Iger because of the takeover, he was defending Bob Iger of because of the corporate takeover. There was a one of the people on the board, because he's a huge stockholder in Disney, almost took over. He defended Bob Iger from that man, basically just because he wanted to keep things stable in Disney, because George Lucas is a big stockholder of Disney. Part of his payment when he sold Star Wars, or Lucasfilm in general, and when he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, was a lot. Some of that billions came through stock, not just through cash. Most of it was in stock. So he's a huge stockholder. So he had a reason to want Bob Iger to remain there, but he literally was talked about how bad Bob Iger treated him when he sold it, because they disregarded his ideas for the sequel trilogy. Bob Iger, in his own autobiography, said he regretted how he treated George Lucas. So know your facts before you just state random dumb shit. Yes, I've definitely seen The Mandalorian, Nicole, all 3 seasons. The first 2 seasons were awesome. The third season was shit, but the first 2 seasons were awesome. Like, I had like a Grogu toy. I bought my wife a Grogu stuffed doll. Um, I have a Mandalorian coffee mug right upstairs. Um, I what else? Mandalorian stuff related. I have uh, um, a lot of stuff. But anyway, yeah, I love the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. Felt Mandalorian felt like Star Wars. It really did. Yeah. So yeah, I'll agree with you, Nicole. Here's another thing, Nicole, that they did really well. Rogue One was awesome. So when people keep trying to say that Star Wars fans hate females, that's totally not true. Totally not true. Like I said, we love Leia, we love Padme, and we loved what was her name from Rogue One. That was an awesome movie, and it was diverse. It, it was diverse. You had a female lead, like you had a woman lead. You had a Latino co-star. You had Asians supporting characters. You had a black guy played by Forrest Whitaker playing a part that from a minor character came from the Clone Wars TV show. It was very diverse, but guess what? The reason people liked it wasn't because of the diversity of Rogue One. They liked it because it was well written and it stuck to the original Star Wars format. That's why people love Rogue One so good. Like, me and my former boss, who was a friend of mine, we went to go see that movie together, and we was like, "Yo, this is good." Like, it already had a good ending when they, you know, retrieved the plans, but then when they had that whole scene afterwards in the third act, when Darth Vader came to try to retrieve the plans back from the rebels, and he just tore them up. That was so good. It was really good. The only problems I would have had with Rogue One was some of the CGI looked a little janky. Like some of the CGI of when they made like a CGI Princess Leia and a CGI of Vice not Vice Admiral whatever his name is, Grand Moff Tarkin. Like, that CGI looked a little janky. Other than that, Rogue One was awesome. So Disney did that well, and they did the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian well. Matter of fact, I hated the Ahsoka TV show, but the way Ahsoka was in the Mandalorian was so good, so good. Like they had a whole episode called "The Jedi" just about Ahsoka, and at first it showed her little spiritual animal, the owl that came out of the TV show. A lot of people may have missed it, but she actually has her own little spiritual animal who embodies the spirit of a force, basically like a force god from a episode in the Clone Wars, and her going to that planet, which was basically like it was basically like a feudal Japan city. It was so Akira Kurosawa. I, it was awesome. And then they even had Diana Lee Inosanto playing the bad guy. For people who don't know the uh, the Darth Marion witch who played by Diana Lee Inosanto. Diana Lee Inosanto is the daughter of Guru Dan Inosanto. He's uh, one of the foremost martial arts masters in Filipino martial arts, and John Fan Jacundo, which was Bruce Lee's style. He was one of Bruce's best friends and took over the schools for him when he went to Hong Kong to pursue his movie career, and continued the schools after Bruce's death. So he's the foremost person in John Fan Jacundo in the world. Um, he still practices to this day and teaches to this day, and he's like in his 80s. Um, so his daughter got to play this character, and his daughter was Bruce Lee's goddaughter. So that was awesome. That's why she was so good, the bad guy. So again, not against female characters, not against strong female characters at all. Like I said, Ahsoka was good, and they messed it up with a poorly written series that they gave her. And I said the bad guy was awesome too. So, oh, I didn't tell you the third season. I didn't know you didn't see the third season, but I trust me, I didn't give you any spoilers. The only thing I told you is that it sucked. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. The third season sucked compared to the first two seasons. You can you can decide for yourself whether you like it or not. You might actually like it, but I'm giving nothing away about the third season. Trust me. Ask anyone in the chat room. I didn't give you any spoilers. Uh, Anna Claire says the woman lead wasn't black. What are you talking about? I never said the woman lead was black. Um, Unless you're talking to Nicole. Anna Claire says Sabine is a great Jedi. No, she's not. She's not a great. You clearly didn't watch Star Wars Rebels, and that's the problem. They put too much of Star Wars Rebels into the Ahsoka series. Like they may as well have just called it Star Wars Rebels because it should have been just about Ahsoka, and it spent too much time talking about Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren was not a great Jedi because first of all, she wasn't even force sensitive. They said that in Star Wars Rebels when she was being trained by Kanan to use the dark saber. The dark saber was the thing that um, design made you the leader of the Mandalorians. So when she be, uh, took hold of the dark saber, the Jedi Kanan taught her how to use it, and he was complaining that she wasn't force sensitive enough to know how to use a saber. She was not force sensitive. And they mentioned it in the show as well, but then by the penultimate episode and then the last episode, all of a sudden she just becomes completely force sensitive and can do like stuff that the Jedi Knights and Masters can do. It didn't make any sense. Not to mention that she was stabbed right in the midsection with a lightsaber. She should have instantly died. If you are stabbed by a lightsaber, it literally liquefies everything around you when it stabs you. Lightsabers are known to be hotter than the sun. There should have been no way that she was up and healed after the second week. That didn't make any sense. Sabrina Wren was not a good character. Plus, she was like By the time they got to her in Ahsoka, she should be in her 30s. Why was she still acting like a rebellious 15-year-old? It didn't make any sense. It didn't. She was not. She. I have nothing wrong with the character, but the decisions they made with the character were horrible. Um, Liam Jones, yeah, Forrest Whitaker played in. So you gotta watch Rogue One, my friend. If you Rogue One is an awesome, and I'm saying this as someone who hates Disney Star Wars. Disney made Rogue One, but Rogue One is awesome, and it has Donnie Yen in it. Donnie Yen is in Star Wars Rogue One. So if you liked him in John Wick 4, you will. All I'll say is you'll like him in Rogue One. He plays a one of the monks that are there are so there are Force monks, people who they're called guardians of the will, um, and they say I am one with the Force. The Force is one with me. That's all I'll say. Guardians of the will are not Force sensitive people, but they do believe in following the Force, but they are not Force sensitive themselves. He plays a Guardians of the Will, which is the first time we get a live action version of the Guardians of the Will. And it says we need Latino women Jedi. Um, Pretty sure there has been one from the prequels. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the ethnicity of the woman who saved Kanan Jarrus. Kanan Jarrus is the one that tried to teach Sabine Wren how to wield the dark saber, and he ended up dying to protect all of them in Star Wars Rebels, which was actually a pretty powerful episode. And I agree with Nicole. I don't care what color anyone is, as long as it's a good script. Exact. That's my point, Nicole. Like, I don't care if it's diverse. It can be as diverse as you want it to be, but give me a good story. That's what I'm saying. Rogue One gives you the best of both worlds. Is culturally diverse, but is well written. So it's like it doesn't even matter that the cast is so diverse. So even if people say, well, the older Star Wars fans are just bigots. No, they're not. They just want good stories. But they like I'm telling you, it's the older Star Wars fans who loved Rogue One. And like I said, the entire cast was diverse. A female lead, Latino co-lead, two Asian supporting actors, um, a guy of Middle Eastern descent who plays one of the pilots, the black guy Forrest Whitaker who plays a mentor to the female lead. I mean, and I can keep going. Liam Jones is Forrest Whitaker's in Rogue One. Yep, he plays a minor character that reappears from the Clone Wars. And yep, Nicole says I didn't know that Bruce Lee was my shit. Liam Jones says Bruce Lee and was an exponent of Jeet Kune Do. He literally that is his martial arts style. He coined it. He made that martial art. This is the martial art that I practice. I have a video of me doing a Jeet Kune Do drill in my category of martial arts training videos. If you want to check it out, yes, Jeet Kune Do means way of the intercepting fist in Cantonese. It was part of his system, martial arts system. There was three styles to his system. There was the Tao of Gung Fu, which is mostly Wing Chun mixed with some other classical Chinese martial arts. Then there was Jun Fan Gung Fu, which is less Wing Chun and added boxing, a little bit of boxing savate, which is not acknowledged enough, boxing savate, and principles of fencing. And then there was Jeet Kune Do when he kind of stripped it a lot of the Wing Chun and made it a more practical martial art after he started doing hard sparring and found out what works and what really doesn't work. But Jacundo is literally Bruce Lee style. I don't know how you didn't know that, because yeah, I don't know if most people when they think of Jacundo they think Bruce Lee. Yeah, no, you said third season. You didn't say first. You said third season. Nicole. No, I'm passionate about it, Liam. So like you like if you're gonna disagree, but then you say you didn't even watch the movies, it doesn't make sense. Like that's like me like telling someone they're wrong about something that they know completely about, which I don't. Like if I don't really follow sports like that. So if I disagree with someone said, no, this so and so isn't the best basketball player or whatever, and I don't even watch it, then I wouldn't be in a position to really say that. It's the same thing here. If you didn't really follow this fandom, then you're not really in a position to criticize or give judgments on it. Nicole says I have to check it out. My brother-in-law says Rogue One was good. It is. I'm telling you. Like I said, I don't like Disney Star Wars projects, but Rogue One was the exception. It was excellent. Solo was kind of bad. Solo was the first Star Wars project I said I'm not going to watch it in the movies, because every Star Wars project since I was a kid I've seen in the movies except for the first two movies because I was too young. 1977 was the year I was born. In 1980 I was only what two turning three. So Return of the Jedi was the first movie I got to see actually in the theaters in its original theatrical release, and it was awesome for like a little kid. Like the Ewoks, like if you were an adult, you hated the Ewoks before a little kid. Someone like me who was 6 years old at that time, it was awesome. I might have even been five or six, but I remember going to see it, and I just loved it. I loved it. Like I love the movie, and as an adult, I appreciate it even more after watching the prequels and seeing that it was by Luke showing love and compassion for his father despite all the despicable things he's done in his life. Is is that love and compassion for his father that brought his father back from the dark side to actually fulfill his prophecy as the chosen one and bring balance to the force. And again, George Lucas said the balance to the force was by removing the dark side, because the dark side corrupts the force. So pretty awesome. But yeah, check out Rogue One when you get a chance if you have Disney Plus, or maybe you can see it on something else if you don't have Disney Plus. She said my excitement did drop when Disney bought it out. Yeah, at the time though, I was enthusiastic because since George Lucas willingly sold it to them, I'm thinking, hey, this is going to be a good thing. And George Lucas was saying, hey, they're going to use my ideas for the sequel trilogy. And the whole reason he sold it to Disney because he was already in his early 70s, and he was like, to fulfill the sequel trilogy, it might take like another 10 years. And he's like, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to have that long to live. So he said, I'd rather give it to them and have them do these movies, so that even, if I don't live to see the continuation of the sequel trilogy, they'll be able to take my ideas and create these movies. But they decided to reject all his ideas for the movie. His ideas for the sequel trilogy would have saw the return of Darth Maul running an intergalactic crime organization throughout the Galactic Republic, which then Luke's new Jedi Order would have to fight to bring order back to the galaxy, and it also would have shown another side of the Force never shown before. The wills. The wills were actually like a physical organisms that embody the Force. He wanted to show that, so his ideas would have been completely different from what they did with the sequel trilogy. Liam, if you watch Rogue One, how did you? You said you did watch it with your partner. How did you miss Forrest Whitaker? He was literally like the guy that was disabled that had the breather. That they went to the planet and they wanted to get his assistance. They was what the problem was. The rebels were saying that he was too extreme for them because he was just he would just basically murder anyone affiliated with the Empire, and they thought he was too extreme, but they needed his help. That's why they went to the planet to uh, to try to work with him. But of course, they ended up uh, testing the newly created Death Star on his base. It didn't even destroy the whole planet; just destroyed that part of the planet where they were. Liam says, "Isn't Larry Fishburne and John Wick?" Yeah, he is. No, I didn't say. Did I say Forrest Whitaker was in John Wick? No, I said Donnie Yen is in John Wick. I didn't say Forrest Whitaker. I said Donnie Yen is in John Wick 4. So I said if you like Donnie Yen in John Wick 4 playing this blind assassin, then you will like him also in Rogue One. But I don't want to give too much away. But I was saying Donnie Yen plays a similar sort of character in John Wick 4 to what he plays in Rogue One. The difference being that in Rogue One he plays one of the guardians of the will, which are monks who worship the Force. Yes, Nicole. Yeah, Bruce Lee created the style back in 1967. Liam says, "Yeah, sounds good. We'll check those videos out." Yeah. So I have like one video where we had this guy come in who was a certified Jeet Kune Do instructor. Although I know Jeet Kune Do, I'm not a certified instructor. So he came in and he taught us a drill that we did, and it was so many steps I couldn't remember. So you'll see me in a video like trying to rehearse the different steps in the drill. Then he also gave us some Kali Filipino martial arts tactics. I didn't film for the video, unfortunately, but he was showing us how to use the arnis or Kali sticks in the drill. But unfortunately, I didn't record that. Nicole says in '77 I was a -8. LOL. I was born in '85. No problem. Amani says, "Hey, I'm here." Amani, you always say, "Hey, I'm here." Then you don't talk. You don't say anything else. You just appear and disappear. Like I don't know what's going on with you. You're like a what's, I'm trying to think what fictional character I'm trying to think of. But yeah, you always well she's young too, by the way, so she probably can't stay up that late. But yeah, she appears to say hi, give me a like, and then she has to disappear. But I always appreciate her showing up. It's just so funny because she appears and then she disappears right afterwards. But yeah, even if you were born in '85, Nicole, you can appreciate the original trilogy because from like '83 to like '99, there was no other, there was nothing else going on in Star Wars outside of the expanded universe. That is, now if you were a serious Star Wars nerd, then you probably would have read a lot of the expanded universe novels, and then there was some Marvel comic books. The original Star Wars comics were made by Marvel in 1978 and they ended around 83, 84, and then they made their first expanded universe novels, which was actually about uh, the grand Grand Admiral Thrawn. There was a trilogy right that was made to come right after Return of the Jedi by Grand Admiral Thrawn. He was supposed to be like the most clever person in the galaxy. He was a bad guy, but he was part of a race of people that were actually fighting a force of aliens on the outskirts of the galaxy, which is why he joined the Galactic Empire because he thought showing loyalty to them would actually end up being able to use the the Galactic Empire to fight these really super powerful bad guys that his alien race were fighting on the outskirts of the galaxy. And then there was like all these expanded universe comic books by Dark Horse Comics, because after Marvel stopped their run, this Dark Horse Comics started writing a bunch of stuff, and a lot of people consider the stuff written by Dark Horse the best of all the Star Wars comics. Like a lot of original ideas came out of it. Um, and like I said, at this point, Luke became the most powerful Jedi that had ever lived. He was basically he was basically what Anakin was supposed to have become if Anakin didn't fall to the dark side. Um, Anakin, because he fell to the dark side, never realized his full potential as a Jedi. So that fell to his son, Luke. Luke became a Jedi Master and created a new Jedi Order. His twin sister Leia became a Jedi Knight and Master herself. They had children, not together, of course. Like Leia had children with Han, and Luke actually married too. He changed it. He in his new Jedi Order, Jedi could now marry. So that was one thing he changed the new Jedi Order. And he married Mara Jade, who was originally sent to destroy him. But they ended up falling in love. She came over to the light side of the Force, and they had children. Thanks, Amani. She said, "I love your knowledge." Nicole says, "Unfortunately, I'm the type that can't stay still that long." Well, you can get some of these stuff on audiobooks. You don't have like if you want. I don't. I hate audiobooks myself, unless it's like I've listened to a few audiobooks. Usually when it's actually read by the actual author, it's kind of awesome. But I love just the old school way of just reading a book. Like it does take an attention span, something a lot of younger people don't have. But not that you're that young, Nicole. Like, not saying you're old either, by the way. But um, when you when you start reading a book, sometimes you get lost in it in a good book, and that's I don't get that from audiobooks. Like audiobooks can be fun, but I want to actually like read it myself. Oh, no problems of mine. I knew what you meant when you spelled it. I can get from context clues. And Monty says you always have new and amazing lives. Thanks. Nicole says I do read some, but yeah, I have Audible. I'll listen to more books in 1 year than I have my entire life. I've read a bunch of books. Like one time when I wasn't, while I was out of school and I was only working part time, and I read like literally like a couple of hundred books that year. Um, and then even still, like I'll read books like on my commutes, because I rarely drive, so I'll commute to work and I'll read like my books often. But I'm way behind in my reading actually. Way behind. But I've caught up with most of all my comic book stuff I want to read, other than some few things I still have. Well, I still have a few books overseas I need to read that my wife bought me. Nicole says, "Oh yeah, that's my problem with reading. It's the first couple of chapters don't have me hooked. I get bored and put it down. First book I got hooked with was in high school. It was The Giver. I haven't heard of that. There was a bunch of books as a kid that I got into, um, and then sometimes these turned out to be like a series of books like Bonicula, Amelia Bedelia, Encyclopedia Brown. Um, Never got into the Hardy Boys, although my mother kept trying to get me those books. I couldn't get into it. Or I'll read stuff like the and Peanuts and Garfield and stuff like that. Or I would read like classical literature books like La Morte d'Arthur, which is the Death of King Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. or the Grimm's fairy tales, the entire collection, or Andersen's fairy tales, which is very similar. I didn't finish reading those though, or The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, all 7 books, etc. I knew Monty's about to go soon. She said, "Sorry, I had to go, but you know the drill. I'll be back next time, like usual. Anyway, bye. I already like. Thanks, Amani. Always appreciate you." Nicole says it was good. There's a movie that came out actually a few years ago. You should check it out. The for the Giver. I just haven't heard of that. And there was like so many classic children's books I read, like The Indian in the Cupboard, Anne of Green Gable. Um, what's some other stuff? So many other stuff out there. The Giver. I'll look it up on my Fire Stick after I get off of here. Actually, let me see. I got my other phone on me. The Giver. Because when you say The Giver, I keep thinking of I keep thinking of that old Ronald Reagan movie, the Gipper. I don't know why, because I never even saw that Ronald Reagan movie, but I just remember that was a line that people kept calling him. But yeah, guys, that's my assessment of the Acolyte now that the show has ended. I think it's trash. Like I said, they spent so much time trying to make it about about a about a queer woman that they neglected to actually tell a good story. And I don't think Leslie Headland is a particularly talented filmmaker. Uh, This is The Giver is a 1993 American young adult dystopian novel written by Lois Lowry, set in a society which at first appears to be utopian but is revealed to be dystopian as the story progresses. Okay, I might check that out. And Nicole says, "LOL. I know Reagan was an actor, but I never seen any of his movies. Neither did I. His movies as an actor, he wasn't like a lister celebrity in Hollywood. He was like a B lister at best. But he was in a bunch of cowboy movies. And I'm not trying to diss Ronald Reagan, by the way. I was just saying he wasn't known as an A-lister in Hollywood back when he was a an actor, but he was well known enough, right? He did some several like cowboy movies and some other stuff before he went into politics. When he ran as governor of California, sound familiar? um, but yeah, and Nicole says, "Oh, geez, 1993. I must be getting old." I said a few years back. Yeah, I mean, for some of us, the 90s doesn't seem that long ago. Um, Sort of like, I guess for like boomers, like for them back in the 80s, the 50s was still kind of clear in their head too. But for us, looking back at the 90s is like boomers looking back at the 50s back in the 1980s. But yeah, um, I'm in this soon unless people got some other gripes as far as Lucasfilm or Star Wars Acolyte in particular. Like I said, Disney has destroyed every facet of Lucasfilm. They destroyed Willow. Willow was a great movie. Like it was a cult. Like it didn't do too well originally, but it became like a cult classic. And they decided to make a TV show about it, and I was so excited about it. Like I was stumping for it on my personal Facebook. I even bought one of the original action figures released back in the 80s when the movie came out. And I watched the show, and I even had my wife watch it with me every episode. It just wasn't good. It was horrible. It looked like the Middle Ages put in Los Angeles, modern day Los Angeles. They did the same thing to Indiana Jones. Like his whole goddaughter, who was like basically, upstaging him throughout the movie, and then turning him into a grumpy old man who lost his son off screen, and then he and Marion going through a divorce, and he just wanted to live his life back in the past in ancient Rome or whatever. Like that just I decided not to watch that. I was like, I don't want to see that. I said, plus after they gave him such a nice conclusion in Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, which wasn't a good movie, but at least it gave him a great ending. Like he and Marion getting back together, finding out he has a son, just for them to do another movie, and now his son died in the Vietnam War. He's now a bitter old man with a bunch of regrets and depressed and losing his marriage. I didn't want to see that. Like you don't take someone like Indiana Jones, which was like such a iconic male action hero, and turn him into this and into that. Like I didn't want to see it. So they destroyed every facet of Lucasfilm, which was ironic because the whole point of purchasing Lucasfilm, besides having the rights to these marquee movies and other content, was the fact that it would have automatically brought in a male audience. But instead of catering to that male audience that was already part of those franchises, they decided to feminize the content, which doesn't make sense. Like I don't know how, from our business perspective, it makes sense to bring in some IPs which have a large built-in male fan base, and then decide to piss them all off. Like, how's that? Just, like, forget the politics of it. At the end of the day, it's all about the stockholders. How was that a good decision? This was why they were trying to get rid of Bob Iger, because he they felt like he was destroying the Disney brand, and it was ruining their stock values. Like this Disney stock values had plummeted in the last 3 years. This is why one of the largest stockholders of Disney, Neil, what was it, Nelson something, Peltz or whatever his name was, he tried to do a takeover of Disney, to which people were surprised that George Lucas actually supported Bob Iger in maintaining his seat as the CEO. But that's because Lucas himself is a large stockholder in Disney, and I'm pretty sure he was probably afraid that this that uprooting the CEO of Disney probably would have been a good look for the company. Nicole says, yeah, that just sounds depressing. Jones is so iconic that even this generation knows who he is. Yeah, like I said, why they like first of all, they didn't even need to make a fifth movie because, like I said, the fourth movie gave him his swans. Like the fourth movie was his swan song, right? So there was no reason to make a fifth movie. And by the way, the fourth movie was made by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. They came back together to make that perfect ending. Well, not perfect ending, but like I said, it was a good swan song showing everything kind of wrapped up from the original movie. But the fifth movie, if they were going to do it, it was no reason to make him a bitter old man. Same thing they did with Wolverine and Logan. But in the case of Logan, it actually worked because Wolverine had always had these same existential issues throughout his whole, even when he was a younger mutant. It's just that now he was an old mutant because healing factor was his healing factor was no longer working because his adamantium was killing him, was poison to his body. But other than that, Logan was a good movie, but that was the only one they should have made an old bitter man because he was a bitter man before he was old. He was always bitter. Mark Hamill, they messed him up with in Luke's as playing Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi. Like it seemed like they think all old men end up just being full of regrets. They did the same thing to Nick Fury in um, what was it called Secret Invasion. They turned Nick Fury into a broken down old man. I was like, what is this thing with Disney turning every like iconic male character once they once they're over the hill into these broken men. Most old people, both men and women, tend to enjoy their golden years. They're not looking at it like full of regrets and stuff like that. Nicole says the crappy world. I don't want them to bring any of that crap into movies or games. Keep that crap out of it from every side and let me enjoy my fantasy land. Right. I don't know. No, go ahead and say it. Like I'll say it for you. Actually, she said, "Don't." She says, "Don't come for me," but I'm going to say it. Disney ruined themselves with the woke crap. I'm not trying to bring politics into it. Hear me out. I watch movies and play video games to get away from that crappy world. Yeah, I completely agree. It's like same for me. Like the gym. When I go to the gym, I don't care about politics and stuff like that. Like that's what me and my homeboy were griping about. Like we were at the gym, and this dude sees our little superhero T-shirts, so he comes over and says, "Hey man, those are cool." And he starts asking us what were our favorite Marvel movies, and it's kind of like taking about time because we trying to hit the bench press, but whatever. So I'll talk back and forth. Then all of a sudden he starts talking about Trump, and although I actually agree with him about what he was saying, I was like, dude, I didn't come to the gym to talk about politics. I come to the gym to get away from the real world. Like this is my little sanctuary. Like either going to the gym or doing some MMA. Those are my sanctuaries. I don't want to think about politics and religion when I go to the gym or when I go do some martial arts. Like that's my getaway. And that used to be the same of these nerdy these little nerdy IPs. Like this was like our fantasy land that we could just, you know, kind of just veg out and go into a different reality. Now we can't because people want to put all their identity, our politics into it. Nicole says exactly. It's so engraved in everything now. It's hard to get away from. Yeah, like I said, you actually can put identity politics in some of these projects, but the story should always come first. Like putting the identity politics above the story is just a mistake. I think I think on some level, most reasonable people agree with that. They may disagree with whether or not the it, that these certain things are heavy on identity politics, but most people can agree that it should at least still be a good story. I would think. Disney also ruined Pixar. Pixar is trash now. How do you ruin Pixar? People used to love Pixar. Now Pixar is trash. Like they did a whole Pixar show movie 2 years ago, and they had this gay character. Okay, fine, it's a gay character, but everything just revolved around him being this gay son. Like it was dumb. Or Buzz Lightyear, like people just saw that as woke. I didn't I didn't mind Buzz Lightyear that much. It wasn't that bad. I like Chris Evans playing Buzz Lightyear, but it could have been better. Either way, Pixar fell off a cliff, and their most recent IP acquisition is Doctor Who. How do you mess up Doctor Who? First of all, trying to make it diverse, it didn't make sense. Doctor Who is a very niche audience, especially in America, because you could pretty much only see it on like either PBS or on BBC. So, and I'm not talking about that BBC, so don't go there, anybody. But anyway, Broadcasting Company. So, outside of those the niche audience for Doctor Who, people just coming into it, it didn't make sense what they did. Like they brought back the old Doctor Who from the early 2000s just to tell him on the show that he was irrelevant because he decided to uh, make himself into a cisgendered white male. And they literally say this stuff on the show, showing that he can't, in his present form, he can't understand the plight of other people because there was this alien which was a non and I'm not kidding. There was this non-binary LGBTQ alien species. And I was like, what do you mean that Doctor Who can't identify with these people? I was like, Doctor Who is not a human male. He's an alien species. He can pretty much take the form of anything he wants. So why they and like in the previous season that did pretty poorly, he was a woman, but they said he couldn't identify in his current form with this alien species, and so then it just got worse, and then they replaced him with a new Doctor Who is now a black gay guy, and people pretty much hated this new character, this new version of Doctor Who. He told people if you don't like it, then don't watch it. So people stopped watching the show. It's like you realize this show's been going on since the '60s on BBC and has a very niche audience because there's not a it's not like Star Trek or Star Wars which have huge built-in audiences here in America. The audience here in America and abroad that watch Doctor Who is a niche audience. And the coach says, "Oh my God, though, like that's my point. Just why at some point it shows it's forced, it fits. Then okay, but they are forcing it. Yeah, they are forcing it. It's what we call like forced diversity, and the cynical like marketing that goes along with it, where they basically bash anyone who disagrees with the forced diversity, which is basically just used as a marketing tool. So then they'll bash anyone who disagrees and just call everyone bigots, which is a way of completely squelching any differing opinion. Because as long as you don't say that this project is great, then you must be aligned with the bigots. So either you have to shut up if you dislike it, or you have to be forced to be called a bigot just because the most extreme voices get the most play online, and so they'll just completely push you onto that crowd. William says, "Ayo, is Franklin the turtle?" Yeah, I don't think so. Unlike Franklin the turtle, I can fight. You better check my videos. Anyway, Almond says, "Hello, what's up, man? What's up, Almond?" So, guys, it is getting late. I'm about to go. I think I've ranted enough. Um, I have plenty of other videos you guys can check out. Um, Turtle teeth. Okay. Your mother didn't complain about it when it was on her pussy, but you know, go somewhere, troll. Anyway, so guys, I'm out. Once it starts getting late, you start getting more stupid people like this putz. Thanks, Nicole. She said, "Stay cool, man. People will do that so they feel better." Oh, I know. I don't get mad because, like I said, most trolls are either minors or they're just adults who are losers in their real life. Because who comes to a live stream just to f with people, other than losers and children? And even if they're children, they still don't get away with it because as a child, they should have better things to do anyway. I know I would. I wouldn't come trolling a guy in his 40s. That doesn't make sense. Like, well, we have more respect anyway. But most of them are a bunch of lead chip, lead chip eating uh, kids with no fathers. So anyway, Fuddruckers pool places how they pin it on Soul when he clearly had an alibi for the events. It didn't even make sense. And then like there's a big cover up at the end, right? Fuddrucker. That's what I said. It was stupid. Like, so to try to keep it, to try to to try to force it back into the canon, which they can't because they already destroyed the canon by the second episode. They're trying to basically now just make it a big cover up. But even if they make it a cover up, it still doesn't make sense because but when Darth Maul appears in the Phantom Menace, even though there was a big cover up of everything that happened, at some point they should be like, "Oh shit, this is happening again." Like that didn't even click. So it shows that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, as much as they want to try to force it back into Star Wars to show that it doesn't destroy the canon, which it clearly does. It doesn't work because even if you say it was a massive cover up of what happened during those events, then again, reality would have struck them during the episode one, the Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon Jinn reported on seeing Darth Maul. The people who were there at that time, like Yoda and apparently Ki-Adi-Mundi, who was 70 years old in the original, in the prequel trilogy, but now it's been retconned to be over 200 years old. Um, he wouldn't have been the one saying, "Well, we haven't seen a Sith in 1,000 years," and disbelieve Qui Gon Jinn. Even if they didn't want to admit it to Qui Gon since he wasn't on the High Council, they should have they should have been like, "Oh snap, this is happening! Like again, we got to do something about this." That didn't happen because again, according to canon, they didn't see Sith for 1,000 years. So even if it was a different sort of dark side user, it just breaks canon. Record says, I get mad at Star Wars because I am a huge fan. Exactly. A lot of fans are mad because Disney is destroying it. Like, I get they want to make more content based on Star Wars, but you can make more content without destroying the canon. And it's not that fans hate Star Wars, Fuddruckers. It's that they hate how the current filmmakers and showrunners are destroying George Lucas' original ideas. George Lucas himself, like I said, went 2 months ago to receive his award at the Cannes Film Festival and gave a long interview where he described explicitly that Disney did not understand his ideas for Star Wars, that they had rejected his plans for the sequel trilogy, that after that he turned his back on them because he felt like they betrayed him, not taking his ideas for the sequel trilogy, and that they don't understand basic concepts like the Force, which are the crux of Star Wars. He said, "Dude, Kiadi Mundi was literally there, and he just kind of forgot." Yeah, the last time we heard someone say, "Well, we kind of forgot," it was the showrunners for Game of Thrones, when they was like, "How did Daenerys dragon? How did they not remember that there was like these ships there with those large harpoons that they could launch at her dragons to kill them?" And it's like, oh yeah, we sort of forgot about that. That's I guess that's what Star Wars did with with the Acolyte. Papa Chris says we talking about Star Wars, the Witch Trials, and the Acolyte. Yeah, we talking about the whole Acolyte, Papa Chris, the whole shebang. How it destroyed the canon, how it's written very poorly, how it's pretty much killed most people's enthusiasm for any future Star Wars content. Like I said, I gave up at Ahsoka. After Ahsoka did abysmally, I gave up. And Nicole says, yeah, Game of Thrones was another they ruined. All that build up anticipation to be so anticlimactic. The only salving grace to Game of Thrones is the House of Dragons right now, is really good. And because it's all based on one book, they won't have content to run out of and mess it up the same way they did the last two seasons of Game of Thrones, where they literally had no books to go off of. They just had some notes from G.R.R. Martin, and then they pretty much did their own thing. Yeah, Stitch 123. I'm not saying shit unless you drop in a super chat. I don't know what you think this is. You better recognize. Take your little Gen Z ass somewhere else. Why don't you go paint your nails and put barrettes in your hair like the rest of y'all do? Go listen to some Drake. Fudd Records says the power of one, the power of two, to power of $180 million to ruin your favorite series. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to any of the future projects coming out. They got Ray, the I think that's what they're gonna call the movie Ray. I'm not sure yet. Then they have a movie about the very first Jedi. So this should date to like, I think the first Jedi actually predates the Old Republic. I'm not sure. It's either the Old Republic or it predates the Old Republic, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be any good. They do have the guy that wrote that did both Logan and the Wolverine working on it. I think his name is Frank Mangold or whatever his name is. So it could be good, but I don't know. Because like I said, the only thing he did, only two movies I know of his that I liked was the Wolverine and Logan. So I don't know how he would handle Star Wars. But he's supposed to be making this movie about the beginning of the Jedi with the Prime Jedi, the very first one. Then there's another movie being made about Rey, and then there's supposed to be another movie that there's going to be about the Mandalorian. It's going to wrap up the whole Mandoverse, which includes the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Boba Fett. So that's going to be a movie. So those are the only three Star Wars projects I know coming out right now, and I think they're supposed to be doing a second season of Andor. I might watch it. Andor wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Federico says, "Let me guess, half the writers are going to be hired specifically because they haven't seen any Star Wars movies." I don't know, but I'll say this: there was, it had went, it had went viral when a Disney executive vice president was caught on camera saying that they will not hire white, straight male writers or other people for anything with Disney. I'm like, wow, really? He said that. So he was it was leaked because he didn't know that he was speaking to a to like this journalist, and the journalist disguised himself and acted like he was just like a regular guy talking to him, and the Disney VP, just basically put it out there. He said, "Yeah, we're not." He said, "If you're a straight male person, we're not hiring you to be any right. We're not hiring them for to be writers, directors, or actors." He said that. He said that bluntly. Papa Chris has a couple Marvel shows coming up: Agatha and Daredevil, Born Again. Honestly, I don't think Agatha is going to be good. Daredevil, we'll see. I'm more enthusiastic now because they had actually started. They had already started filming Daredevil years ago, and then they threw it all away. They said it wasn't good. A lot of people, like insiders, said they disliked it, so they decided to redo the whole series now, and they brought back the original cast. They brought everyone back from the original cast from the Netflix Daredevil. So all the original cast of Karen Page, um, because originally they just had Daredevil and they had Kingpin, but now they brought back everyone, all the supporting cast. I was like, they should have done that from the beginning. Like, why throw away a good thing? They were perfect. So all of them are back. So I am that will probably be the only Marvel project that I'm excited about other than Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm going to see this weekend. So no spoilers, guys. No spoilers. No spoilers. No spoilers. I won't give you any spoilers. Don't spoil it for me. But I'm going to go see Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend. But in any case, guys, it's 2 hours in now, and and I think it's about 11:30. It's my Betty Bye time. So I'm going to go do that and um, maybe do a little bit of exercising before I go to bed because I feel bad for not doing any of my martial arts earlier. Um, but that's about it. If you guys got any more thoughts, you can leave it in the comment section. I'll check those. I always check that, like comments, questions, queries, disagreements, stuff like that. All right, but I appreciate the back and forth. Even if people disagree with me, it's still good. Fun Record says, "Yep, Deadpool and Wolverine is the only thing Marvel has put out in the last few years. I'm excited for." Right, I'm not even excited for Secret Wars. Only way I'll get excited for Secret Wars is if they bring the Russell brothers back, because the Russell brothers said 5 years ago that they wanted to make that movie. So if the Russell brothers isn't attached to Secret Wars, I don't see myself seeing any more MCU movies anytime soon. But good night. Thanks, guys. He said good night, man. Thanks for the good chat. Thank you, and I'll be back again. Do you want to check out my previous stream yesterday? I was talking about um what were people's favorite superheroes. So, all right, guys, take it easy. Thank you.